Fighting with Zoom.
All right, good to go.
Okay, so we're opening the budget workshop is starting at 6:38. There you go. And this is
Right.
all about you, Dennis.
So Kathy should have sent you guys a couple of spreadsheets, one for revenue, one for capital.
Yep, she did.
And we can start with a revenue, if you would like, which isn't a huge, not a huge big change from last year. So there's been some, so state revenue sharing, as you can see from your report that you got today, we've been underestimating state revenue sharing for quite some time now. If you remember back in September, when we were having the discussion over the mill rate, and I said, you know, I was comfortable raising state revenue sharing then because we'd underestimated it by quite a bit. We've collected almost 100% of our state revenue sharing already this year, and we still have 4 months to go. State revenues did not do as bad as the dire prediction that they had made when this pandemic started. They are down, but they're not down as bad as they were. Because there's some other revenues that are going to be down this year, I did increase the state revenue sharing by a little bit. We were at 361,000 for this year. I upped it to 395,000 for next year. And as I said, you know, we've collected almost that already this year, and we still have 4 months to go, which should be somewhere in the neighborhood of another $100,000. Homestead, Betty, that stuff will pretty much, I think, stay the same. Local road assistance will be down a little bit because the state gas tax is off because of, you know, people not driving as much as they did earlier on. But I don't expect that will be down a whole lot, just a couple $1,000s. One area that we're having a little bit of issue with is with the transfer station. I know you guys probably saw your report today. Transfer station revenue is not keeping up. The money for recyclables is not there. Cardboard prices have not been there. I think there's been some movement in the last month or so, but I don't expect to see a whole lot of movement in the transfer station revenue. That's up $3,000, mainly because of the contracts with Alna and Westport Island. So that's just the gist of those two. EMS revenues, I've kind of kept the same. Their call volume is pretty much staying the same. You can see at 66% of our budget year, they're at 65% of theirs. So it's up $5,000. And again, that's passing some costs on to Dresden and Westport Island. Maine Yankee fees, Maine Yankees impact fee will probably be a little less this year. So that line dropped by a little bit. So airport revenues will be down a little bit this year. You recall the airport's probably going to be closed for maybe up to 6 weeks as they redo the runway. But we do have a new tenant for the office there, so that will help offset some of that. Rick's pretty confident his fuel sales will stay up. He sells a lot of fuel to non-aircraft type people, you know, especially if Speedway's open this year, they buy a lot of fuel for their race cars. So we don't expect to take a huge hit there, even though it's down, we'll be down for 6 weeks.
Can I just ask whoever is playing with their dog to mute themselves? It's a little distracting to hear somebody's dog playing. Okay, go ahead, Dennis, sorry.
Auto excise tax, I dropped a little bit for this year. We are running a little ahead. And most years we run a little ahead, right on or a little ahead. I just don't know, there were a lot of cars sold this year. There was a lot of incentives for people to buy automobiles this year. So I'm not sure that next year we'll see an equal amount. So I just dropped that number by about 40,000. So that's pretty much the revenues in a nutshell, except for Parks and Rec. And I know we'd already had some discussions about the Parks and Rec revenue. I know that there's been discussions that in the 3 years that I've been doing budgets here, there's always been a discussion that they never hit their revenue target. We went back 7 years worth of revenue for the Parks and Rec department. And if you take out last year as being the outlier, excuse me, I may have to go get some water. Their average revenue is just a little north of $414,000 a year. So at $429,000, they're not off that far.
Dennis, why don't you just go ahead and go get a drink and come back?
I'll be right back.
Sure. Okay. So I understand.
Sorry about that. So yeah, anyway, so last year, if you put last year in there, they averaged down 406,000 over the 7 years, which isn't far off from where, as on an average, from what they have projected in the last couple of years. I know there's been some years where they projected pretty high and they fell off by quite a bit. The challenge. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, Dennis, so last year was just north of, the actual number was 327. And this year I'm thinking, what, maybe 220?
They are behind quite a bit this year.
So no, we can't, please forgive me, but we just can't use 7 years. It's not an accurate number, Dennis, and it's just because it's not going to happen.
If I can continue, okay?
Sure.
I needed some place to start with this, and that's why I went back through the 7 years to see where they were at. Now, if you look at last year, up until the point that they had to close, we were at 75% of our budget year. They were at 74% of their revenue. So they were on target to do pretty well last year. And we can't help the fact that, in the month of May, we only brought in $274 total. So, like I said, I needed a place to start. So I kind of started with an average and then worked my way backwards and said, okay, well, we're still in this pandemic. It's likely that in July, we're still kind of going to be seeing some of these restrictions. I don't think they're going to go away by July. So I do think that probably for the first maybe 6 months of this season, things will be off a little bit. But I do think I do think we're headed in the right direction. And I think things will start to open up as we get into the fall. And so my thinking is that for the first 6 months, we probably will be off. And after that, things should start to pick up a little bit again. Who knows? I don't know.
So Dennis, what does this amount do to what the town's contribution to this would be?
So to understand where I came up with this number, I took that average and then I went through some of Dwayne's individual revenue lines, and I looked at the ones that he's really suffering from because of this pandemic, like concessions. you know, we can pretty much take wipe concessions out. There's nobody there buying chips and soda and stuff like that, and there likely won't be for a while. The rental of the building itself, you know, which isn't doing well. So I went in and just took some of that stuff out. And that's where I came up with this $406,000. As far as tax revenues goes, Dwayne went back to his office today and is working on trimming his budget down by what we trimmed his revenues down, so that we're not asking for any more tax dollars than what we started out with.
Oh, excellent. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good, Dennis. And I think that sounds very reasonable to me. Thank you so much. I support this number.
The fact of the matter is, we just don't know. It's a guess. Who knows?
Yep. Yeah, I think you've taken a really close look. I think you've trimmed the number down to where I could see that working, because I do think things are going to come back more this year than originally thought. So, yeah, Kim.
Just one other comment. Like, they're open now and are going to stay open, and you know, things are just going to be as well. Who knows what the future is? I heard that the pandemic is gone from horrendous to just bad, but we're all supposed to be getting vaccinated. And you know, if we recall last year, it shut down in mid-March and stayed shut for several months. And
Great.
you know, every time I go swimming pretty regularly, and all of the lanes are booked. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. It's very safe. Like, they're managing it super well. And so I think you've done a great job. And I just want to note that next year we shouldn't be closed at all. Like, we're already open, so we can't really compare it to last year.
Okay. So, Dennis, can I ask you a question about the EMS services?
Yep.
Revenue line?
Yep.
So, so they're at about 65% of their revenue. Is it anticipated that they're going to, before the end of the year, that they're going to bring in closer to the 100%, or do we know?
It's, you know, it's hard to tell what the call volume will do. They also suffered because of this pandemic. You know, the call volume is back to where it was. Last spring, it was really bad. March and April, just people that should have called didn't, because they didn't dare to leave their homes. Some people actually said, well, I didn't think I was supposed to leave my home. Well, if you're having a medical emergency, you need to leave your home. But a lot of people didn't, because they couldn't take their support system with them. You know, you go pick up grandma and she wants grandpa to come with her, and they couldn't, because they just wouldn't allow them into the ER. So, you know, it suffered a little bit in the spring. It has come back and it's picked up a little bit. And so, you know, I think for the year, it'll average out to where it was.
So you're fairly confident that they'll make probably make full revenues next year?
They'll be pretty close to it, yeah.
Okay, and I've got the same question with transfer station and what's the other one, and waterfront.
The transfer station, I'm not quite as confident on. I think they were only at like 45 or 6% of their revenue for this year so far. And we're at what, 66% of our budget year.
Yeah,
but
they're at 57%.
It was how much?
They're
57?
at 57%, 56.7. So it's 57%.
It's still off. Scrap metal prices have picked up pretty well. So that's one area that lately we've started doing pretty well on. And like I said, you know, cardboard has been pretty depressed, but Ted, the last time I quizzed Ted about it a week or so ago, I think he's on here anyways. He said he thought there would be some movement in the cardboard prices. So, I don't know, Ted, you can chime in on that.
The price has come up, and we're about ready to ship out another load right now. And I was just looking at the budget. We're at 63.28 on the cardboard now. So I think we'll make the cardboard.
Okay. All right. Well, those were the departments that I saw that revenues were significantly down for the year. So I just wondered if you thought that where you thought those were all going.
Yeah, and some of the waterfronts, because boat registrations, you know, some of that stuff happens in the spring. So we should see a kick in that in the spring to bring that a little closer to where it was.
Okay, does anyone have, Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah, Dennis, what was the actual number in 2019 for the Wiscasset Community Center?
Let me see if Dwayne, do you have it right off? I got it right here.
Just do with it.
2019 was actual revenues of 394,975.
Thank you.
And that was the year that they actually was one of the high years that they predicted like 450,000.
Right.
Okay,
And,
all right.
you know, Dwayne is careful with what he does up there.
I
You know,
agree.
I have to give Dwayne a lot of credit for watching his budget. I would point out that of the 7 years that of these figures that I've been using, if you look at 5 of the 7 years back through here, they were over budget. Which also takes out of your fund balance, because now you have to make up the shortfall in revenue, and then you have to make up the shortfall that's in the budget as well. I'm not sure why you go over $40,000 in 1 year on a Parks and Rec budget, but they did do that. So
I won't comment.
I-
I won't,
I-
if someone goes
Not
over,
gonna
bad-
comment
if
either.
someone goes over, I will comment, if someone goes over budget, it's bad management. You know what your budget is, you figure out how much you can spend through the year, your different quarters, your different months. You watch your bottom line, and then you stop spending when you're out of money. That's, basic. Okay, any other questions on revenues? Seeing none, you want to move on to capital budget, capital expenses?
that's all set.
Yep.
So on your spreadsheet there, the top two, the waterfront pier, that's dedicated, that comes out every year. I think this is the last year that will come out, and that will be paid off.
Yay.
The DOT agreements, those are the manhole covers for Route 1 for when they repaved Route 1. That was originally $61,500. The actual bill was just north of 48,000 something, but they didn't finish everything. They ran out of time, and they didn't get the intersections done the way they wanted to, so they're going to have to go back and do those. And they sent us an estimate for about 17,000 for the balance of those manholes. So that put us up to the 65,000. That's where that figure came from.
So, Dennis, does that mean we're getting charged more because they didn't finish when they were already 3 months over schedule?
No, they just didn't get to them. So,
But I mean, is it costing us more because they didn't get to them?
no,
Okay.
Oh, no, the original bill was for what they had done to that point, but they hadn't completed the job, so the whole job wasn't on the bill.
Yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they're doing, but in terms of like tearing up stuff to then repave it and whatever.
and we don't have to pay this bill until June of 2022. So,
Okay.
so
Okay,
that's what those two things are for.
Jeff has a question.
yes, Jeff?
Dennis, can we pull the old Ferry Road?
Can we do what now?
Can we pull the old Ferry Road? Does that have to be in capital?
That's a discussion I guess we can have. I don't know where you'd like to take it from, but so
No, I just meant, are we going to look into the state taking it over?
well, we still have to pay for it. The state's not going to pay for it. That's why I said I have to do a little bit more digging into this to find out whether it's worth it or not. They're just going to take it over. They're not going to pay for the construction of it.
Okay.
And there's a grant that we're getting for this, and how much is the amount in the grant?
So the grant's 125,000. So the original estimate for the repair at Old Ferry Road is $630,000.
Okay,
And we got the grant for 125, which takes us down to 525,000.
okay,
Takes us down to 505,000. And then I put extra in there for, there's always,
oops,
it always runs over. Construction costs are pretty high right now. So who knows, again, if things start ramping up and all this pent up demand happens, look at lumber prices and trying to get anything. So I put a little extra in there to give us a little bit of leeway.
Okay,
And so the way I approached this was, the recommended amount to take out of capital every year is a minimum of 2.5% and a maximum of 4.5%. So looking at what's in there currently, that 4.5% is the balance of everything from Old Ferry Road down. So I kind of took Old Ferry Road and set that aside by itself. We could spend a whole lot more money than this, and probably should spend a whole lot more money than this, but we'll go through what we have right at the moment. Go ahead.
so Dennis, several years ago, a previous town manager had the idea of taking out a bond for $2 million and bringing our services up, our equipment up to speed and up to date. And then using money from the capital funds to fund the payments, so that, get everything fixed and have just one payment instead of doing a vehicle this year, 2 more vehicles next year, and having people driving around in tired iron and trying to eke our way through it. Have you ever looked at doing that?
I have not. But I certainly, again, we could spend $2 million this year, quite easily.
I mean, our roads and everything.
Well, we didn't get to paving last year, and we carried that money over. So there's quite a bit of money in the paving anyways. I would love to see us get everything up to date, up to snuff, where we should be. What that actually would look like, I don't know. I would have to sit down with department heads, and I have like 5 years worth of capital requests from them, but I haven't actually totaled it all up to see what it would look like.
Jeff?
Yeah, I was just going to say, from our reserve account standpoint, we took out $1.2 million, and I think the account has generated 1.6.
Yep.
So just to give you my 2 cents from that investment, and I know that it sounds crazy, I would feel comfortable with taking $2 million out of there.
Oh, I wouldn't.
Oh, Pam, we've already made 1.6 back.
I understand that, Jeff, but you, I don't know, with investments, you don't take everything that you made and spend it and think you can't trust that every year you're going to gain, like we have in the last year.
I was just saying, I would feel very comfortable with doing it.
Okay, I hear you.
Any year.
I hear you.
Like,
So,
we've been doing for years. You know what I mean? It's up to over 17 million now. And I think when you started that fund 11 years ago, you put in 10 million. Every year taken out between 500,000 and $1 million. And we're up over 17 million right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Thank you, Kim. I feel I agree with Kim. Pam, it's just there. It's there. And why borrow it?
Be comfortable and maybe now's not the time to do it, but I'm just going to throw this idea out there. Every year the rec department comes up as a big question. I'd be comfortable taking some of that money and creating an endowment fund and setting the rec department up as an enterprise account, something we can move towards in a 5-6 year plan. We've done really well, and I'm not sure. I mean, that's all I'm saying. We've done really well. I think we could reinvest that money in our town and ease some burden on the taxpayers, not just spend it, invest it.
Correct.
Right. So my thought would be not dump a lot of money aside for just one department. My thoughts were, ambulances, trucks to plow the roads, fire engines, get the roads paved. So the infrastructure of the town is not in good condition.
And it's not going to get any better, and piecemealing it,
Right.
and putting it here and there is only going to get more expensive.
When was the last time, I mean, when was the last time we spent more than $250,000 on paving a road, which actually does like, I don't know how many feet of sidewalk?
Since I've
If you were
been,
gonna do it right.
since I've been on the board, I think at least my first year on the board, we spent $250,000 on paving. It was right before Ted became in charge, when we had the other guy, Doug.
Right,
So
yeah,
we-
it does.
Bill's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, I'm trying to have the board have a discussion because it's a board workshop.
Oh, I
So
apologize.
yeah, that's okay. Just waiting, anybody else on the board have anything to say on the topic? Yeah,
I would
Kim,
add, Pam, that I support your idea. I think that I like that idea. And I think that there's enough money to think of a lot of different ideas.
there's a lot of
Correct.
space here, a lot of space, and it's not something that would happen this year, obviously, there's no time. But this is something, let's let Dennis work on this for next year and see what he can come up with and what our real needs are in town. What are our, again, people keep saying it, several people keep saying, what are our priorities in this town and what does it really need to bring it forward and get it to a good space? And then what are our plans on sustaining it going forward?
Is part of this going to wrap into the comprehensive planning process as well? Like, wouldn't this
probably will.
stuff work
It
together?
should.
It should.
It should, absolutely it should. We
But-
should, we should have a regular vehicle replacement, if not a policy, a practice that would be a guideline. We should have a set number. We have 51 miles of road in town, I believe. We should have a set amount of roads that we tend to every year. We should have all of our infrastructure on a program where there's a cycle that all of these things are attended to. Instead of let's all fight about who gets a new car this year or which sidewalk gets fixed.
Correct.
I think we need to have, Kim's giving me a thumbs up, thank you. Yeah, I think we need a plan. And the
Correct.
comprehensive plan is a big part of it, but our infrastructure plan is also a big part of it. So just going forward.
So in digging through some of the stuff that was left behind by previous town managers, because there's a lot of it here, there's been capital plans that have been drawn up for years. And what I've heard is, well, we draw up the plan, but the board never follows it. So, I mean, believe me, I am all for having a plan in place. I would much rather see us replace one ambulance now, another ambulance in 4 years, and be on a cycle where we buy one every 4 years instead of having to buy one now, buy one next year, and then, hit these highs and lows where we get on a nice steady stream, where we're replacing stuff and it's a steady, even pattern.
Well, the thing that brought this back, and I'm going to pick on Larry's department, but the thing that brought this back into my mind is we just bought a police cruiser, and there's a police cruiser on this request. So are we expecting to buy a police cruiser every year? We
No.
can't afford that.
No,
So
but what I would like to see, and we shouldn't have to buy a cruiser every year, because
Right.
we should be able to get 3 or 4 years out of those cruisers. So we should be buying one like every 2
2
years,
years.
every 2
Yeah,
years.
every 2 years.
And we should be able to get 8 years out of an ambulance. So we should be buying one every 4 years and replacing one.
Right. That's what we need. We need a plan that we need the plan on what needs to be purchased on what schedule. And we need a plan on how that would be funded. Because I think the town could do that. I think the reserve accounts could, if not be expended themselves, but we could take out bonds and pay them back out of, instead of coming here with a capital request for, 1.2 million every year, that's the payment on that bond to get that cleared up.
Pam,
Kim.
I love those ideas, and I'm not suggesting that we, I hope it didn't sound like I want to just spend the reserve accounts.
Oh, no, no. I
Take some of
didn't.
those earnings and then reinvest them into the town and in exactly what you're talking about, maybe
Yeah.
setting up some sort of endowment for some of our other accounts so that we don't have to always fund them by taxpayers in the future. Yeah.
Okay. That's just what I thought you were saying, Kim.
Yeah.
I got it.
I'm very
So-
excited. This sounds really good.
And as
Okay,
I've said
so-
all along since I've worked here, even before I was the town manager, you're sitting on these funds, they're healthy funds. They don't do your bit of good sitting in an account somewhere if you're not doing any good with them. And
Money's worth nothing if you're not
money's
spending
worth
it.
nothing if it just sits there and we don't take advantage of it.
Right.
So I
So
do-
Bill, did Bill still have a comment?
Talking about bonds, if we ever looked at, instead of getting a bond, getting a loan using some of these funds as collateral. You probably, if you can do it, you get a much lower interest rate than you would with a bond. And
Well,
we're
we
not-
we
and we're
look
not
into
getting-
different.
We're not using up our capital.
Right, right. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, we could look at what other options are out there.
there's other financing options out there, so.
Sure. Okay,
So
So
anyway,
what
I've been
else we
very
have?
conservative, I think very conservative with this year. If you guys are willing to take more, I can redo this and come back at in another meeting. You know, we obviously going to have more meetings than this anyways, so.
right. So I think what we're looking for is the
Very, very road.
plan for next year. I don't think we're gonna expect you to come up with all of that within the next 2 months so we can get it put on a warrant.
Well, it would be a
We're-
lot of work,
we're-
but you know,
We're not, I am mean, I'm not evil. So, I think, does anyone on the board have any questions on anything else on this capital improvement list? Well, I'm seeing nobody. I'm seeing nothing. I do want to ask, I hate to pick on Larry all the time. I am gonna ask about, when we just recently bought this cruiser, it was said that the other 2 cruisers are in good condition. So why are we buying a cruiser now? And is one of the existing ones now going to be traded in this time?
I'm on a new computer. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't think our cruisers are in bad conditions. They've just got a lot of miles on them. 108, the one that is the primary patrol vehicle, has got 165,000 miles on it right now. The other vehicle has I think it's pushing 115,000. So, I mean, I feel we need 3 vehicles. My contract, as the chief says I get a take-home vehicle. That hasn't happened since I've been here. I respond to calls with my personal vehicle to back up the guys at night. I strongly feel that we need a 3rd vehicle. And I like the comment you said about getting rid of the cruisers every couple of 3 years. One is the trade-in value. I mean, they're SUVs, they're all-wheel drive. The trade-in value is going to be a lot more. The 2 vehicles we have now, the newest one is 5 years old. So, I mean, when I talked to Leo about trading those vehicles, he said they're parts vehicles. They're not even worth trading. So I like your comments about the future, about getting things on track and getting on a schedule. But I strongly feel we need 3 vehicles and we need to get into a rotation so that just the liability of it. I mean, if I have an officer at a high-speed chase with a vehicle with 165,000 miles on it, I mean, they're putting their lives in these vehicles.
Okay. So would you expect another cruiser next year?
I would. And I'm not being greedy. I'm just trying to get to where I feel we should be and then get on a cycle. I think if we had 3 vehicles, you wouldn't see the mileage. You wouldn't see the mileage that they're getting on them. And I really think that we could get 4 years out of a vehicle. I really do. I think we could get 4 years out of a vehicle, turn it in when it has roughly 100,000 miles on it and still get $7,000 or $8,000 for the trade.
So you're saying we bought a vehicle in 21, we're gonna buy a vehicle in 22. You think we should need a vehicle in 23, so the next one you would be wanting 2 years later, you'd be wanting another vehicle in 25? Because that car would now, your first one you just bought would be now 4 years old.
Yeah, it would be it would be the 2021 that we'd be looking at trading in 2025, be 4 years old. I mean, because that's experimental. I mean, if it's only got 70,000 miles on it, it's still running strong. I think we'd have to look at it then to see. I mean, do we trade it then and get $10,000 or $15,000 for a trade, or do we run it into the ground and get nothing for a trade?
A lot to think about. Any questions on anything else on the capital improvements? From anyone? You have anything else for us, Dennis?
No questions?
I don't know. I guess I'm the only one that's being mean today.
Oh, I don't think you're being mean.
Well, I'm pretty good at it.
It'd be a mean-
Can I just ask a question? Again, this could be an easy one, but what exactly are overhead door openers and why do they cost that much money?
Oh, it's just the fire department, the automatic door, the electric door openers in the fire department.
Yeah.
They've been there for a long time,
Big doors.
the big doors. And those doors need some improvements besides anyways. I was in there a month or so ago and there's a gap 2 inches around them where the cold air is coming in because they've just worn out. The doors, the weather stripping around them.
Okay.
And the rescue boat actually will be a combination boat to be used by the harbor master. Because the harbor master is currently using his own boat to do harbor master stuff, and I don't think we should expect somebody to use their own equipment. So
Okay.
I talked with Rob about combining that together, and I think that would work fine.
Okay. And we're getting a boat this time that's not too big for our harbor,
Yes.
because we've done that already a couple of times.
Yeah, no, this would be, so it would be easy. They need to be able to use it up on Gardner Pond if they have to, so it can't be anything too big, so.
Okay. Just asking the question before it gets bought.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on this tonight, Dennis?
I don't think so. I thought you guys would have all kinds of questions for me on this, so.
Well, I don't know, we've talked it all pretty much to death.
I mean, I'm willing to
Any
spend a whole
questions?
lot- I'm willing to spend a whole lot more.
No, I think you did a really great job. It's modest and it's been a hellacious year and we've survived, and I thought numbers look good and all the department heads have done a really good job at like keeping things under control under pretty incredible circumstances. So I feel kind of relieved. Like everything looks a lot better than I think I was expecting. So thank you.
So I was trying to be somewhat modest with this, bearing in mind also that we don't know yet what the school budget's going to look like, or whether or not we're going to actually want to take some money from capital or from fund balance to help offset property taxes this year. So I tried to factor that into this a little bit by not going too hog wild with it.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any other questions.
Can
Not
I
seeing-
make one other comment?
Sure.
That I don't know what it's going to be, but the next stimulus package has money for states and towns, so maybe we will have revenue coming from that.
If it passes as it is right now, we would see just north of $376,000. I already looked it up. But it needs to get through the Senate as it is right now, so.
Well, that might help drop our mill rate back then.
Well, we'll see. They're hoping to bring it up tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see some movement on it fairly quickly.
Great, very good. All right, so I'm seeing nothing else, so I guess we're done for the night.
Do you want to set a date for another budget workshop?
Let's do it right on the back of our next selectmen's meeting.
The next meeting is actually next week, which probably would work because there's only one thing on the agenda, and that's that dangerous buildings hearing, which I think might take maybe an hour at the most.
We have a selectmen's meeting next Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, you have a
I didn't know
special
we
meeting. You have a special meeting next week for the dangerous buildings hearing.
oh, right. Yeah, so
I
let's
didn't
do
know
it.
that.
Let's do it right on the back of that.
You want to do another one
Okay.
right then?
Sure.
Yeah, why not? See if we can get it fit in.
And then, we probably can do another one on the 16th. That I think that agenda is going to be a little bit longer, but I don't think there's anything on it right now that will take hours of time.
Okay,
Wait, we're next week
I-
at 6 o'clock? I don't have that in my calendar either. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
I didn't have it in my
either.
calendar either.
And isn't that the same time as the school board meeting?
Yes.
On Tuesday.
Yeah.
Can we make ours at 7?
We can't because it was a legal notice. As far as I know, it's already been served.
Yes. Okay,
See everybody next week.
You betcha.
so does that mean we also have a meeting the week after that?
The 16th is your regular meeting.
Right, so that's 3 weeks in a row. Okay. Okay, so good night, everybody.
Good
See
night.
you all-
And thank
see
you
all
very much,
very soon.
everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for playing.